Welcome to another episode of Miami Cop Talk. I'm Raul, and with me is my partner, Robert Asencio. We have a real special guest for you today, and I'm going to let Robert, my partner and co-host here, introduce our guest.
Thank you, Raul. So today it's my honor and pleasure to introduce Fernando Bosch. He used to be with the city of Miami. You probably know him. For those of you that watched crime stories on cable, USA Network, I believe it was, the First 48, homicide detective, a friend, a brother, served with us while we were on active duty, right? Active police service, but somebody we wanted to have here on the show to speak to you about his experiences as a homicide detective, as a sexual battery detective, and then also let's talk about what the sentiment is in the officer community now at a time when officers are really being attacked or they're scrutinized, right? So, Fernando, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here with you guys. We've known each other for years, and I'm honored to be here.
Thank you, brother.
Excellent, excellent. Now, for those of you who have seen, Miami Manhunt, Last 48, all those kind of stuff, yes, this is Fernando Bosch. He was a little younger back then. The hair was a little darker, had a nice little stash, but it is him. It is him. And a lot of great stories that you have and you can share with us. But there's one in particular that I want you to, a case that you worked on, the Shenandoah rapist. The Shenandoah rapist. That was one that hit home here in Miami. If you can give us some details as much as you can, not to get into anything inappropriate, but if you want to share first your a background on how you came up the ranks. I think you're working now for the city of South Miami Police.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I started in 1987 in the city of Miami. I was a patrol officer for 10 years. I then moved into sexual battery, child abuse unit, and after being there 2 years, I was asked to by back then my assistant chief John Brooks to go to homicide. I told him I really wanted to learn a little bit more before I moved on to homicide because homicide is homicide. So I was in sexual battery from 1998 to 2003, and I believe it was in 2000 when the Shenandoah serial rapist investigation began. I don't think the city of Miami ever had a case of that magnitude, and I don't think they've had one since that case. And but it was a very demanding case. Back then, we had the record for the most tips to come in through Crime Stoppers. Overall, it was an amazing experience. It was very hard, but it was an excellent experience to have.
So, Fernando, for those people that don't know, the Shenandoah is in the city of Miami, Little Havana area, right?
Correct.
14th Street, and roughly 14th Avenue is the where the Shenandoah Park is, right?
14th Street and
14th Avenue to
22nd Avenue,
Okay.
around there.
So that was early 2000. For those people that remember, talk to us about that case, man, and what did that subject do? What was he accused of?
This individual was a Honduran national, and he raped an 11-year-old girl and other ages in between, all the way to an 81-year-old a lady.
What a sick bastard, man.
Oh, tell me about it. The 81-year-old lady had Alzheimer's, and he raped her. After he left, she took a shower and everything, and when her daughter got home and they were sitting having dinner, I guess it popped into her head, and she said, "Oh, by the way, there was a guy here, and he had sex with me." And unfortunately, there was no DNA because she had taken a shower and everything. But at the end of the day, we were able to get him to confess to that crime also. But like I said, from 11-year-old girl to an 81-year-old lady, and that's what made it extremely difficult because normally serial rapists target a certain age, certain look, but this guy was like all over the place. So,
Wow.
How many victims in total did this individual rape?
that we know of during that time, and that I think there was one that was not reported, but we were able to hit him with, or we were able to put 10 cases on him.
Wow. And I know, if I'm not mistaken, he was at TGK, Turner Guilford Knight, and he escaped from there.
He did. I remember I was working an extra detail one night, and I got a phone call. And mind you, this was an investigation that from the beginning, when we found out that we had, I believe it was 3 DNA hits on this guy.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know who he was, but we had 3 victims with the same DNA. We said, okay, we got a problem here. We got a serial rapist. And we began working it. We were working it day and night, around the clock. I remember going home, getting 4 hours sleep, coming back to work. For months, we were working it. And when I got the phone call that the guy had just escaped, I was like, Jesus Christ.
Man.
Yeah. It wasn't a
Gut punch.
God, yes.
So, but for those of you that want to know more, we're going to put Manhunt. It's Miami Manhunt, right?
Miami Manhunt, correct.
We're going to put it on the below the show for people to have a reference. But I'd like you guys to take a look at and watch the episode, right? It's an hour long, a little over an hour. But the one thing that got me, man, was how you guys were feeling going through the case, right? The frustration, the countless hours that you guys put into this. Look, for those of you that want an insight into police work, that documentary provides you an insight as to what the real heroes behind the badge do. This guy and his team spent hours away from their families trying to capture somebody that was out there preying on our community. Man, coming back to you, I remember in the video how the sense of relief that you guys had, the high-fiving when the DNA came back, that you finally confirmed that this is your target, right? This is your subject. You take him out of the station, and you take him down to TGK. You guys were so, good to this guy, and he was so remorseful. And then he goes to the jail, and then you guys capture him again. And what was the demeanor after that when you guys captured him? Do you remember?
Well, when I didn't capture him the second time, Miami-Dade did.
Okay.
But during the interview, you want to get the guy to tell you what he did, basically to confess. You want to treat him the right way. We fed the guy while we were waiting for his DNA. We treated him good because at the end of the day, we wanted to get, his confession. We got his confession, and subsequent to the confession, we took him out on location. I told him, listen, can you go out and show us where you did these things? And he agreed, and he jumped in a van. He was being videotaped, and he went to every location and pointed out all the scenes where he committed the rapes. And my daughter, who was back then like 11 or 12 years old, I remember coming home one day and her telling me, that little time that I was able to spend with her, I remember her telling me, listen, I just went to Publix, and I had a dream that I went to Publix and the serial rapist was there. And to me, that was like, now I even wanted to work even harder to catch this guy.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I know from the time of that incident that it was on the news. It was a heightened alert throughout our community. Crime Stoppers were getting tips. You can speak to that a little bit more. But I want to shift into the professionalism. You're a true professional. You're still in law enforcement, and it's a calling. It's a profession. It's a calling. Some people, do their time, they leave, whatever. But you're committed to the professional law enforcement, and the fact that it's a profession because you just mentioned your daughter was the age of one of the victims, and I have 3 daughters, and it takes every fiber in your being to be professional. If we were in a third world nation, that guy would have had immediate justice, especially
justice.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
exactly.
absolutely, yeah.
So speak to the composure, the professionalism, your training. Speak to that, and and to some of the dynamics of how that case materialized from the tips, and again, I think the community, for anyone that sees Miami Manhunt, for anyone that can remember the time, that was that was a scary moment in the Miami area, knowing that there was somebody out there indiscriminately raping people from 11 to 81.
Absolutely. So when we got to like 3 DNA hits on the case, um, Lieutenant Alfaro, who was my lieutenant in sexual battery back then, formed a task force. Uh, and every day the task force kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And when I tell you that we had every municipality, we had DEA, we had airplanes, we had helicopters. I mean, it was incredible. We had a war room where we would meet and discuss different things about how to catch this guy. Uh, all the leads that would come in would get processed. Um, they would get assigned to different detectives, and eventually, either myself or one of the guys, the senior guys, uh, would look at the outcome of the tip to make sure that it was investigated correctly, or if there was any other questions or anything like that. And like I said, we had the most tips from Crime Stoppers to come in, and it was nonstop. Day and night, day and night. We had civilian personnel helping us out with the tips, receiving the tips, categorizing them, getting them assigned. A supervisor would assign them, and to me, it was the most amazing case that I've ever worked. I learned a lot from it because we were out there talking to the community. The community was very scared, obviously because of what this guy was doing. Uh, there was community meetings. It was incredible.
So, can you just really, before we move on, because there's something really to point out here. This guy was a non-traditional rapist, right? Can you tell us or share a little bit about the guy's MO and how he preyed or how he selected his people? Did you guys ever figure out how he identified or went after his victims?
Did he have a family?
His family was from Honduras. He was from Honduras. Um, Going back to your question, was the way that he did it was he would like the little girl. He probably saw her coming from school, follow her to her house, and knocked on the door. Told the little girl that he was lost. That he was trying to find an address. He made up an address, and that he wanted some water because he was thirsty. He had been walking for hours, whatever. And when the girl turned around to give him a glass of water, he forced himself into the house. This was one of the cases. I'm not going to get into details. I don't even want to remember. But he was in that house with that girl for over an hour. And that girl was the best witness, the best victim, because she took the time. She described what he was wearing, what he said, what he touched. She remembers the time because she was looking at the clock in her kitchen, and she remembers when the guy started, and she remembers when the guy finished. And what he did to her is unhumane.
Brutal, brutal.
So, and he did this on and on with the majority of the victims. Like the first victim was a 21-year-old woman, and he cased her. She was coming home from work a couple of days, whatever, until he decided to go ahead and commit the rape.
Was he married? Did he have kids or anything like that?
So here in Miami, he had two girlfriends. One in Little Havana and one down south, I believe, somewhere in Perrine or somewhere down there. And he did have family in Honduras. After the case, after the arrest was made, we wanted to learn a little bit about his background, what could have caused this, and we traveled to Honduras, which is something that I don't think has ever been done before in a case in the city of Miami, and I don't think it has been done since. What we learned was that this guy was a church-going guy, played the guitar and sang in church. We learned that he came here. He worked on a cruise ship, and when the cruise ship got to Miami, He stayed here. He was deported and then came back into the country legally and was here illegally.
Wow.
Yeah. And the reason why I brought up is, and I asked you if you remember how the guy's demeanor changed from when he was arrested originally the first time to when he was arrested the second time, was because it's very well documented that this guy, it was like he's a sociopath, right? He was very remorseful, very meek, very apologetic. You know, it's not me, crying, going to jail. He escapes. Then when they capture him again, the guy's personality, his whole physical demeanor had changed. He was jovial. He was actually proud of this whole manhunt that was behind him. Man, what a sick individual! Coming up on the 20th anniversary of that arrest, we encourage everyone to watch this show, and we would like to shift to something else. Your years in homicide, brother. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like? If there are any cases that come to your mind, and you know, how you see the changes in law enforcement.
So when I come back from Honduras on the serial rapist case, there was a captain that went with myself and another detective to Honduras. On the flight back, he goes, "When you get back, you're being transferred to homicide." And I felt like, okay, I think I'm ready after this case. I think I'm ready, and that's in 2003. That's when I started in homicide. Um, I was placed on like a training team, which I later became part of that training team before I retired. But I was put on that training team. I had a lot of investigative experience from 6 years in sexual battery, and I think like 2 months after I started in homicide, they gave me my first case. You know, my sergeant back then said, "Are you ready for the case?" And I'm not scared of anything. I said, "Bring it on." And that was my first case. It was in Little Haiti. Um, it was, the first case. You're a little nervous at first, but I learned quickly that the case in Little Haiti, people don't see anything and they don't want to talk to you. So it was very challenging trying to get witnesses to admit that they were on the scene. 2 days later, when you find out that they were there, go pick them up at home and tell them, "Listen, I know you were there." So it was very demanding and very, very weird, like trying to get witnesses to put themselves on the scene. So that was my first homicide. And then from then, I mean, essentially, I handled so many homicides, um, little kids. That's the worst thing. Drive-by shootings where little kids get shot and killed. Um, there's so many things that I can tell you, and I think um, the way that we investigated those cases back then to how those cases are investigated now, it's a lot different. From what I hear, uh, there's a rush to like make an arrest. There's they're putting more pressure on the detectives when they don't have the resources that they really need. So things have changed in that aspect because back then, and I'll say this, back then, sometimes they'll tell us, "Listen, we don't have overtime to pay you guys." We will go out there on our own and try to do our job and do what we did. Uh, I don't think that's the case now, nowadays. So
Yeah, and things are a little different nowadays. I know back in the early 2000s, technology is not what it is today. Technology really does help in the investigative process. But you made a statement um, that little kids and those are things are horrible. Considering the pressures in law enforcement and people retiring at record numbers now and not wanting to join the ranks of law enforcement, recruitment and selection is actually a hard thing now for major agencies. What has kept you doing what you're doing? And I want you, based on what you just said, the fact that you're still doing it says a lot about your commitment to the profession. But how were you able to manage knowing what you knew, dealing with what you dealt with, the gory details and whatnot? What kept you focused?
it's something that I was in sexual battery for 6 years, but when I went to homicide, that's the ultimate crime. And when you become an investigator, when you have that in you, I guess you always want to find out, who did it, why was it done. You want to find out everything as much as you can, and that's what drove me.
Sense of justice.
Absolutely, absolutely, and like on First 48 or whatever, a lot of times they just show, the case when you first get called out, when you go to the scene and all that. You got to sit down and write a humongous report. Not only that, but you got to go testify eventually.
Correct.
In a trial. And that's something, I still enjoy it. I had a trial yesterday. It was for something minor, but I hadn't testified on the trial because of COVID and this and that in like 5 years. Or since I retired from the city of Miami and I came over here, but I like all the aspects of it. Some people get frustrated. I get frustrated sometimes with the way the system is and the legalities of certain things. But I still love what I do. If not, I wouldn't be doing it.
Correct.
So we're here on Miami Cop Talk. You can find us at MiamiCopTalk.com, on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or you can just come to Miami Community Newspapers and you'll find us. We're speaking to, let me see how I can put this, retired City of Miami Detective Fernando Bosch, who's currently serving in the city of South Miami as a detective. Still on the job. So let's talk about 48 hours. How did you get on to 48 hours and what was that like?
So when I started in 2003, I believe First 48 started in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
When I started in 2003, they told me, listen, there's a TV crew that's going to be following us around, on homicide, this and that. And luckily, I had already had the experience of working with this independent film crew on the Miami Manhunt. So I already had experienced having a camera, right next to me. The only difference is now the cameras were a little bit smaller because when they filmed the Miami Manhunt, the cameras were huge. There was a microphone sticking there. Sometimes I would turn around to talk to my partner and hit the microphone.
Wow.
So, but it was. I really didn't think about the camera being there. I just did what I had to do, and I was, I acted like I normally, like I act. So people make fun of me because sometimes I will get like really happy when we broke a case or something, But yeah, the experience of being on First 48, people recognize me all over the place, and it's funny because it's like being a celebrity without the money.
And you had the amazing good looks back then. So I know that was
What do
one
you mean back then? What do you mean back then?
well, hey,
People.
time forgives no one. But no,
look at this.
there are great episodes on there in the First 48 and Miami Manhunt. And I want to thank you for your service, but you've been a great contribution to the South Florida law enforcement community and your experience. I know the chief of police of South Miami is a smart man. It was a no-brainer to bring you on there.
Rene Landa, my chief, is amazing. He was my lieutenant at one point in sexual battery. And I mean, he would ask me to come in to work for free. I'd come in to work for free because he's that type of guy that, very friendly, very, very understanding. If you tell him, listen, I got this family problem, go take care of it. Family's more important. But he knows that when you come to work, you come to work and you're going to do your job correctly.
Yeah, he knew your dedication to the profession like we've talked about. So, it was a no-brainer to bring you onto the city of South Miami.
Thank you.
So let's shift to something that's going on right now, right? You have the Surfside building collapse. I don't even know how many first responders are there. People have responded from all over the world. Search crews. We have one of the best search crews, urban search crews in the country, the fire department, City of Miami, Miami-Dade Police. I'm sorry, Miami-Dade Fire, complemented by the officers behind the law enforcement badge. We talked about this offline, right? You never worked a scene like that. I've never worked. Thank God, I never worked a scene like that. I don't know. But what are the conditions? Can you describe for the viewers the conditions that these officers or the firefighters and the search teams are actually working under?
Well, first of all, let me tell you that there's another Fernando Bosch who is a Miami-Dade firefighter. That's
I
my
know him.
son.
That's your son.
That's my son.
I met that guy some years ago.
Okay,
Can we have him on the show
Sure.
Yeah.
So
to thank him?
He's the smart one in the family. He became a firefighter.
He is, and he's loving it. But thankfully, when the building collapsed, he was working out of the Sweetwater Station or around there, and he got called out to Aventura to cover a station over there because Aventura had responded. So he actually never had to go to the scene, but I remember that he had to work like 3 days straight without going home to his kids and all that, and I felt the pain. But a scene like that after a couple days, a scene like that at the beginning is not fun, but after a couple days, it takes a toll on you. You know, you're gonna have certain smells. You're gonna run into certain things that are gonna live with you for the rest of your life. And I feel the pain for all those firefighters and first responders that went out there. And if they need to probably talk to somebody. Eventually, in the long run, they're going to need to talk to somebody. I suggested they talk to somebody because it's going to stay with them for the rest of their lives.
Correct. And there's nothing wrong with talking to people about situations that you deal with. I've never dealt with anything like the Surfside situation. And the only thing that could come to mind would be Hurricane Andrew. Back in 1992, there was massive devastation in the South Dade area, and we were down there. But again, can't compare to what happened because, again, this is something that was unexpected. Hurricane Andrew, we knew it was coming. And there was a level of preparation, but it was a bizarre situation that's occurred in Surfside. I want to shift a little bit. Local law enforcement. What is your perspective on local and the national law enforcement scene, considering what we've dealt with in 2020, what we're still dealing with? How do you see things in the career that you've dedicated a great part of your life in?
I mean, there's a lot of new police officers that are starting out. A lot of people retiring. The new officers have to gain that experience that the older officers have, and it's going to take some time because of certain things that have happened. There's a lot of policemen that are saying, you know what, I can retire. I'm going to retire, and more power to them. I'm not one of those that have been ready to completely retire yet. But I understand. I understand that there's a lot of concerns out there. Some guys are scared that if they do something, they're gonna either lose their job, lose their freedom, lose everything. I understand that. But what I tell some of the guys that I work with is, if we don't do it, what's going to happen? If everybody starts thinking like that, what's going to happen? You have to be stronger than that, and you have to take your training and your heart. If you do things the right way, how you were trained, you're gonna be fine.
Yeah, I think law enforcement has always been a job or career profession that has required exceptional people or demanded exceptional things from people, right? Ordinary people. It's demanded that people do things that go against their own natural instincts. Probably more so now, because you know that you're in the scrutiny. You know that as a police officer, if you go to a scene, and we're talking about that offline, if you go to a high crime area and you begin to do proactive enforcement and talk to the people, you're going to find something. How many of our brothers and sisters got involved in shootouts just by simply doing their job? And you know that consciously. So it takes an exceptional person to deal with that. And honestly, I agree with you. If it's not in you, you shouldn't be in the line of work.
Absolutely.
There's no room for cowards in this business, but we have to be, or you have to be, that much smarter. Do you think the training is helping produce better officers, or is there anything else that can be done that can help the officers that are coming on the road under these today modern day, I guess, scrutiny?
I think the training is there. We have very good trainers throughout Miami-Dade County. I think it's just the experience. It's a different atmosphere from when I started as a rookie than the rookies that are starting now. It's a different atmosphere, so they're gonna have to learn and get the experience and live it until they become comfortable. Like engaging the people in the bad areas.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that you have to go up there and turn around, put your hands behind, up against a wall, and talk to them. Talk to them. Sometimes you talk to them and they become relaxed and they let the guard down, and you get what you need to get.
Yeah.
And those are things that you learn little by little with experience, and that's what we need. And I think we have to be patient. Sometimes us senior guys are a little bit impatient, but we have to be patient. They're coming along. They don't have the experience. We have to let them get the experience.
Fernando, there's no doubt that you're a subject matter expert. No doubt. You may not want to accept that, but you are a subject matter expert in law enforcement and in investigative abilities. But as a subject matter expert in law enforcement, if you could, change something, if you could maybe contribute, which you have already, but if you could contribute something to the current day of law enforcement to try to make it better, what is it that you would do?
Obviously, more training is always good, and more being out there visible, engaging with the community. I'll give you an example, and this is my personal opinion. What's going on in Chicago? You got to let the policemen do their job. I think it's gotten a little bit carried away now. But if the policemen,
Are you talking about the I'm sorry, the amount of murders and shootings and
It's a war zone. It's a war zone. Yeah.
if the officers would have been allowed, or I guess they were allowed, or they weren't doing it, I don't know. But you engage the community, you talk to the community, and you let them know that you're out there, that it's our street. It's not my street or their street. It's our street. It's our neighborhood, because you live there for part of your life. You're living in your job, just like corrections. They live in the jail while they're working, so they're serving time. But if you let them know that, look, this is our street and we're going to keep it safe, and you're able to, if you see something suspicious, act upon it as a law enforcement officer, I think it would have worked out a lot better than now. It's out of control. There's I don't know how many shootings every day. It's crazy.
Yeah, the mayor there, Lori Lightfoot. I'm no fan of hers, I can say that. But since she's been in office, there's been like 1,500 homicides, and as a I agree with you. I think, and I've said it before. Robert knows. Politicians should stick to their like.
Why do you look at me when you're talking about
Because you were a
politicians?
politician, bro. And
Just because I was in elected office, I like to look at myself as a public servant.
I'm going to quote Pitbull: "The politricking, let the politricking be done by the politicians, and let the policing be done by the police."
Ahora va a salir a Pitbull.
Pitbull politricking. I saw that in the video that he put out yesterday. And you know what? I know you said you didn't want to talk about it, but I want you to talk about it. What do you think was going on in Miami with the Cuban situation? And it's a hot topic. Give me your 2 cents worth, man. Don't hold back. Don't hold back.
I was born in Cuba. I left Cuba when I was 4 years old. My dad passed away like 20 years ago, but he told me stories. My mother's still alive. She's told me stories. And, what Cuba has gone through for 60 years, it's crazy. And they're living it, and I have no idea, because I don't live there.
Correct.
Only the people that are living there know what's going on, and what's going on is, I guess, they're so desperate that they went out to the streets. Now, what I think about what's going on here, people have the right to demonstrate. Absolutely 100%.
But not block their highways.
Well, people do stupid things sometimes,
And we have discretion in law enforcement.
Correct. But, why block the streets? Why commit acts that you shouldn't be committing? That's not going to help anything at all. I don't care.
Correct.
Oh, you're going to call attention? Yeah. You're going to call attention to you, and you're going to call attention to the Cubans. every Cuban's going to be, oh, look at these crazy Cubans, what they're doing. So that's not going to help the people in Cuba, the family in Cuba, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree.
You're right.
And Robert and I were talking. Listen, injustice anywhere is an injustice, and you look at the videos that are coming out with the police doing what they do in Cuba. You know what? If that were happening here with the police here, be different.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So if we're not going to tolerate that here, and I know every country is a sovereign nation, this and the other, but violation of human rights and abusing unarmed civilians is just completely unacceptable. And I think we should all, regardless of what your political trickery is, I think.
Why are you looking at me again, brother?
I think you should.
We're gonna have a fight in this room now.
I think we should all.
Stay tuned. We're gonna have a fight here.
We should all unite around the fact that the injustices 90 miles away from our shores are unacceptable, and someone needs to do something. And if we've said it, if we get involved in Afghanistan and way across the world and this and the other, hey, this is 90 miles away. This is our neighbor, man. So
one thing that I'm just a little policeman. I'm not a politician or anything like that. But if you can cross over from Mexico, no questions asked, but if you flee a country that you're starving to death, you got no medicine, the living conditions are horrific, and they catch you, they're going to send you back. How does that work? I don't understand.
Yeah, no, definitely. We need a measured approach, without doubt, right? And measured response, because the attack is not directly on the U.S., but it's attack on humans.
Right.
What the Cuban people are going through. Recently, in the last couple of days, we've been putting out videos, and I've been doing a lot of research about what's going on the island, and the footage that we're receiving from allies and news sources. Man, just breaks my heart, right? And I totally agree with you. If people are trying to flee a country that just is dying, literally, it's killing its people. Lack of medicine, lack of sanitation, buildings are falling down, it's like time stood still, man.
Yeah.
If people are fleeing that and we're sending them back, are we not complicit? So we need a whole change of mindset. Look, on me, I'm not gonna, I'll be very clear about it. I am continuously sending messages to the administration, using my ties, me as a citizen, because I want a response, and I want some type of action taken on Cuba. I do not believe that includes a military action at this point, because they haven't attacked us. But we definitely need to be able to provide some type of solutions and some type of relief to the people. And our politicians need to stop stoking the fire, because you have a bunch of people here that are emotionally committed, that are ready to charge and ready to go out on the sea, do whatever they have to do to help those people on land. The politicians are complicit in that when they start getting up on stage, calling for the end of that regime without using their influence to call on Washington, which Washington has the power to do it. So that's my 2 cents. I'm sorry for going off, but that's
absolutely
how I feel. We're here with Fernando Bosch, a great example of what South Florida law enforcement produces. Brother, I haven't said it to you before, but thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for the times that you came out to respond to me. You don't even remember one time that you were very instrumental in my career. I thank you. I thank your son. I thank your wife, your family, because they are part of this equation for what they've done and how long they've stood behind you and allowed you to do the work that you do for the rest of us. Any parting words, Raul?
No, if you want to add anything you'd like to say to the community, anything you'd like to say, is there a shout out, anything that you like to add before in these last closing moments of the show?
No, I mean, to all my brothers in law enforcement, fire department, stay strong, do your job. That's what you signed up for. Do it honorably, and you're going to have a great career. Time's going to fly. And, you should be, if you do it correctly, with your heart in the right place, you're going to be able to go home every night, put your head on your pillow, and go to sleep, and knowing that you did something good.
How long have you been married?
The second time,
Second time.
10 years.
10 years. You want to give a shout out to the wife?
My-
For putting up with you for at least 10 years?
For my wife, Christina, I love you. Thank you for being there. I was already in homicide when we started, and she was like, "This is crazy. You just got home, you slept for an hour, and now you're going back to work till who knows when. How can you do that?" And at first, she didn't understand, but she stuck by me, and here we are.
That's important. And I'm on my second marriage. Law enforcement is a tough career. It's a tough career. So yeah, I think
Our spouses become and our families become the victims.
Yeah.
Of the job.
so. Robert, you want to close the vote? No politicking.
No. Actually,
No tricky.
gratitude, right?
Yeah.
We're here at Community News. Tommy Stiff, our producer.
Mainland Morelands.
Yes, tune into that. We're again at Community News. We can't thank you guys enough for joining us. Please drop us a line, 305 at Miami Cop Talk. Email us. Let us know what you're thinking. But please subscribe and join us and help us grow this venture, because we want more officers. We hope to have you more on more shows. I want to talk about those cases that we can talk about, but give people an insider's view into law enforcement. Thank you.
You have been listening to Miami Cop Talk. We hope you have enjoyed this episode, and visit us at MiamiCopTalk.com to get the latest on all our broadcasts. We want to thank our partners and sponsors that have made Miami Cop Talk possible. And on behalf of Robert Asencio and Raul Correa, we want to thank you for listening to Miami Cop Talk. Stay connected and visit us at MiamiCopTalk.com.